Josh, I did it! Hello, welcome to another episode of the ORG podcast. This is episode number 3, where we talk with Lance, and I guess right now I've named it the Oregon Trail to the Ortho Lab, but we got a lot of fun stuff to talk about. I'm going to bring in Josh real quick, the producer. Say hi, Josh. Thanks for helping us out. And he's going to be in the background clicking buttons to make sure things go smoothly. So big thanks to him. And but today we are talking with Lance. Lance, I just added you in. So hello, how are you doing?
Good to be here.
Good. So Lance, we have gone with started with Tiffany, the current president. We went to Brandon, the vice president, and now we're talking with Lance, the treasurer, who also happens to be past president. So of the ORG. So we're just working our way through the what would you call us? The elected board, I guess.
The volunteers. The voluntarily elected.
Yeah, the voluntolds. We got told. So, we got some. Hello, Luciano from Brazil. Glad to have you join us this morning. But that brings up a little housekeeping. If you want to ask any questions for Lance, go ahead and put them in the comments below. If you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube, you can go ahead and put the comments below. We'll bring them up and we'll answer your questions live. And then if you're watching this live stream, recorded stream later, you can ask them in the comments below and we'll get to them as we get there. But also, members, you got a special thing. Let me add to my stream here. If you go to the website, the orthodonticresource.com, you'll find the article right below the front page, and you'll see Lance's beautiful mugshot there. If you click on that, and you can watch it from there, and you can also be a call-in feature. But you must be an ORG member to be able to call in, and we'll see you on the strip at the bottom, and then we'll bring you on. You can ask your question, make your comment, make fun of us, however you want to do that. And so I just want to do a little housekeeping there, and looks like we got another comment here. Let me remove this here. Remove. And we have Facebook user. Love that Lance has his shirt on.
Hey,
we both have our shirt on. Yeah. We're both representing. Now, I did get a request from President Tiffany to put on the website a place where you can actually buy your t-shirt. So if you weren't at the conference, you could buy it there and we can ship it to you. And on the back, I don't know if you noticed this, it has all the member labs that were members as of March 2023. So if you're a member as of March 2023, you're on the back of this shirt, your lab name. So we'll have that to where you can check it out.
We need more names on the back of that shirt.
Yeah, we need more names. Yeah, we need to make where you have to have tails and it unrolls down the back. That'd be great.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. So we usually start these podcasts with the very important question of, Lance, how in the world did you get started in the ortho lab industry?
I babysat for an orthodontist. So
What? You were a babysitter?
So I'm one of 12 children. I have, and we moved to a city in Wyoming, and the last 6 of us were boys. And when we moved to Wyoming, my mom made sure that we always stayed busy. And so if anybody new was moving into town, they always just called our family, and 6 kids would show up to help unload the truck or whatever it might be. Well, one day they made the call to my mom. My mom said, "You'll be over at so-and-so's house or this address, and you guys need to help somebody move in." Well, we helped move in the orthodontist. And later that night, he asked if I could babysit. So I babysat for him first night, and I babysat several times for him. And I was probably 13 at the time. And a few years later, he took me to an Eagle Scout banquet, and I was 15. And he asked what I wanted to do, and I told him I wanted to do something in the dental field. And my motive at the time for that was I liked the way he lived.
You moved him into his nice house. Yeah.
He seemed to have a lot of spare time. He seemed to have a lot of extra cash. He had the nicest car in the city. Um, and so he said, well, how would you like to work for me? So at 15, I didn't have my driver's license at the time. He picked me, he offered me a job, and I said, great. And so he picked me up the next day, and I went into the lab, and he said, here's what I'd like you to do. And he gave me an appliance, and I actually made a Haas type expander on my first day.
Whoa. That man.
And he used it, and he goes,
no.
I'd like to, I don't know how. I'm sure it was trash. It wasn't pretty. I'll guarantee you that. But he used it, and
oh my!
That
was wire bending. That was soldering. That was acrylic. That's everything.
I did the whole thing.
One step or one appliance.
He kind of gave pointers, but in one day I made a Haas RP. I practiced. It probably took me all day to make the one.
Right.
He did teach me to duplicate, so I duplicated and poured models because I had like 5 of the same model.
Oh, okay. So if you did mess up one,
I did. I'm sure I messed up a couple. So anyway, at that point, he then that was the beginning, and then he sent me off to Great Lakes, and so I did the Great Lakes course. And all of them were under Dan Miller. And those of you who remember Great Lakes with Dan Miller. And I actually took the course with Dan Miller's son. So Dan Miller was in a couple of the courses with me, and I actually took Dan Miller's daughter on a date. I had dinner at Dan Miller's house. I was young, and I think part of that was that he's like, what moronic parent would send their kid that's basically 16 to Buffalo, New York by themselves for 10 days?
That's impressive. You wouldn't see that today.
No, I did ask my parents. I said, why did you trust me?
Right.
We did trust you. And I'm like, but why?
Well, because they said we have 11 others. So, that.
So, yeah, that could have been part of it. I just lost my feed. Are you there? All right, there we go.
Yeah, we still see you.
And anyway, and so Dan Miller kind of took me under his wing a little bit every time I came out. So I was very fortunate to have Dan really kind of take me under his wings, and so he coached me and encouraged me to learn quite a bit, and motivated me to learn more. And I did that for about 3.5 years before I went on a mission for my church. So at that point, I went on a mission for my church, and then I broke my retainer while I was on my mission, and I needed to find a laboratory. And I went and I found a laboratory, and some of you guys might know Norm McMillan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. In Florida.
Yeah, he's in Florida now. He used to be in Winnipeg, Canada. And truly one of the most talented technicians I've ever met.
He was at our conference one year. Priscilla was able to, and we learned a lot that year from him.
I actually knew Norm's mom, and brilliant man, brilliant technician, taught me a lot of things that I took for granted when I was working for him. We've since talked, and I've told him how much I appreciated him giving me the foundation. He took all the bad habits that I created as an in-house technician and told me that I truly did suck as a technician.
Even though you made a Haas on your first day,
Well, if you could see how bad it was, it still wasn't really usable. It did suck. So, and he put me on a path to learn even more. So it's been a journey, and I was speaking with Josh earlier. I've been doing this now. At the end of this year, it'll be my 43rd year. So of doing lab work.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
so you went to Norm to get your retainer fixed.
I did. And then he, after my mission, he hired me and I went back and worked for him for quite some time. But before I went there, my brother, who had worked for the same orthodontist I did, went to work for the orthodontists. And so Norm then hired my brother before he hired me. So
wow.
My brother and I have been business partners since we were young kids.
Well, I was going to ask, like with Brandon in the previous podcast, I didn't realize his brother Seth was involved also. So it's funny that I'm talking to another person where the brothers, are in business together. Y'all, I don't see his face much. Just kind of like with Brandon, you seem to be the front of the company.
One of the things my brother and I have been able to do is we've expanded beyond the laboratory. He's very much still part of the lab. As you know, many lab technicians were kind of introverts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in reality, the ORG and this association has helped us to find our group where we fit. On a social level, outside of the lab, I'm more of an introvert, but inside of my work environment is where I'm less of an introvert. So if you were to still send me to a party, I might still be the guy in the corner, not associating with anybody. But in a work environment, I'm much more comfortable. And Ryan and I have also expanded into other business ventures. And somewhere in the last couple of years, Ryan has spent more time in that arena, doing real estate. He's still involved in the lab, but less so than he has been in the past. But I wouldn't be where I'm at today without our partnership, because it lasted over 30 years. And we're still partners today. It's just that he's got a different focus now than what he's had in the past. And
so just to go back, here's Norm at our conference, and you mentioned how talented he was. He actually sent some pictures of some acrylic that he did with ortho acrylic, some art that he did.
That boat there, so those sailboats. So it's called, if I remember right, I was with him when we were developing his very first one. And I think it's called clear sailing. At least that's what we talked about at one point. It's clear sailing.
Yeah.
And those were made out of all denturum wires and.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's ortho wire.
And when we were doing this, we had to learn how to heat the sails, and so we got a heat gun, and I remember helping him bend the first one.
So you were involved with creating this.
Well, I don't have that much creativity. I just helped him bend the thing.
Oh, there you go.
And I don't remember how I don't remember if I came up with the clear sailing or what. I was there when that name came up the very first time.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether he still calls it that, but we talked about that. But incredibly, he's an artist first. And the interesting part about Norm is, I remember, right, he's colorblind.
That's right. Yes. I remember him saying that. Yeah.
We had one color of acrylic, clear.
He couldn't see the other ones. Well, you could have had more. You just didn't know. He didn't know he had more.
He just said, "Look, I don't offer colors because anyway, we did one color and that was it." So
was this in Canada?
This was all in Canada. So and then eventually he went. I think he went off to Minnesota and a few other places, but then he ended up in Florida. So, but I know he got involved in some pretty neat things with helping some people with disabilities and such.
We're going to have to get him on the podcast.
Really one of the most talented individuals in the industry. So.
Yeah, we'll have to get him to do some hands-on for us at the next conference. So keep an eye out for that in the future.
That would be great.
So your brother started working for him first.
He did.
But did your brother have any ortho experience?
He had the same lab experience with the orthodontist. So
so he started working.
So when I went in with my broken retainer, he said Norm said, well, he asked if I wanted to work, and I said, well, I still have another year left on my mission. He said, well, I need somebody just like you. And eventually I said, well, I have a brother in Wyoming. And he moved my brother up, and my brother actually lived with him for 6 months. So,
Oh wow,
um,
man, the small world that we're in. Because I don't think I ever knew you had that connection with Norm
well,
before.
I really owe him to really, he really developed my mind and my understanding and my ability to see the quality that needs to happen, or the how to build a decent appliance. So
And I he got so detailed on just the Adams class. He
that's
had a
his
whole class.
that is his forte. That is his
Yeah,
forte.
that is that is amazing. so,
Um,
so how did you end up opening your own, or am I jumping too far
So
ahead?
no, that's actually right in there. So I worked with Norm for a period of time to help grow the lab. I then got hired by another orthodontist, and I grew that lab from zero to almost $12,000 a month in a year. Um,
Wow.
and so I went, if I could do this for somebody else, I should be able to do this on my own. And so I had been married for about a year and 3 months at the time. And I went down to the States and I looked for uh, a city and a place that I wanted to build a business. And whatever I could fit in a 3x5 trailer, I was 23 years old. We decided on Oregon. And I went with 6 months of rent paid for and some little bit of money in the bank, and off we went.
Oh my goodness.
I was
That
23. My wife, believe it or not, was a lot younger. and
robbing the cradle.
she was 19 at the time.
Oh, but
So,
not so bad. Yeah.
and we moved with no safety net. I mean, my parents lived in Massachusetts, her lived in Winnipeg, and off we went. And so it was a sink or swim.
So yeah, I was always under the assumption you started in Oregon, but you grew up in Massachusetts. I must have missed
I
that
grew up in
before.
Wyoming. My parents moved to
Oh,
Massachusetts.
Wyoming. You said Wyoming. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
So I never lived in Massachusetts. So
Okay. That okay, and then you just took the plunge. Now that's the great thing about the ortho lab is, at least back then.
it was $16,000 all it took to start the lab.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard. I think I started mine with 10. And I had a bunch of people gave me a bunch of stuff to start with, so a lot of materials and stuff. So that's great.
Well,
Was it called Excel then?
you're right at the beginning. Yep.
Okay, that's awesome. I didn't
So
realize. And what year? About
that was
what year was?
January 1990.
Oh wow. Okay.
So when I first got going, I guess I had the vision. Well, if I go back even farther, I wrote a paper for there's a school in school they had a program called DECA. It was an education, a business course, and I wrote a paper on opening an orthodontic laboratory, and I took 17th in the nation. So
Whoa.
that was the only thing I did good in high school. Um, and I went back and in January, and so the name of the lab in that paper was called Global Orthodontics.
You were going worldwide, global
and
world.
but I went back and I looked at that after the first few years of running the lab, and I met some of those numbers that I'd written back when I was 16 years old. So
Oh, so the business mind of yours was, there the whole time.
I loved it, and so within 6 months I had my first employee, um, and over and above my wife. My wife is always I would not give I would not I would be an ingrate if I didn't express how much my wife supported me in all of this. A 19-year-old young woman follows this starry-eyed dreamer, and leaves her family and everything she knows to a different country. She grew up in Canada, and supported me all along the way. and she did my books, she did my driving, she helped me with study models, she pumice appliances, she did all of that, and I owe her a great deal. And it isn't only in the last few years that she finally said, I'm done.
Yeah, can I retire now? Can I? You got enough employees? Can I walk away?
It's too big for me now, and that's what so she kind of walked away. I don't want to say walked away. She's still a big part of what we do. So
I could say the same thing about my wife. She she believed in me when I wanted to go out on my own again, and almost had to give her a business plan. I was like, okay, I got a business plan now. She's like, okay, let me hear it. So, we both owe our wives a big, and Josh's wife too. Yeah.
And it's amazing to me how many businesses are out there in this industry. I mean, Don Inman with his son. I mean, we can go down the list. There's a whole lot of them. Bill with Christian and
we see Zach at the conferences last couple of years.
Yeah.
Not Zach. Is it Zach? Your son's name.
Oh,
your son's name?
Oh, Tyler's
Tyler. I don't know where I was getting Zach.
Yeah, Tyler's been there with mine as well. So, but it's because there's good opportunities there. So.
Yeah, that. Well, where'd your brother? Speaking of family, where'd your brother come in at when you?
By within 10 months, my brother came home from his mission, and he started working. And so at this point, we have 3 people, and we had to continue to grow. And so we grew to where we are today. I mean, we've always been in a growth mode. One of the things I wanted to point out with Brandon, first of all, I don't know that I could ever have an interesting story as Brandon's. It's impressive. It's going to be quite boring compared to his. But Brandon pointed out a lot of the technology that he has, and it's fabulous. But I asked Brandon one day, or we were in a conversation, and he deserves credit for this. I says, somehow it came across, he says, I grow so I can afford technology. And he truly exemplified that in the last podcast and showing you how he's continuing to grow so he can receive technology. But with that being said, it's not always 100% essential. There are some things, if you're not computerized, you don't have a printer, you might want to work towards that. Those are things that you don't quite have the options, but to not have some of that technology. But growth, we need growth so we can have some of that technology. And Brandon deserves a lot of that. Was very well said in a conversation we had. So. And he pointed out a lot of it, but you don't have to have a wire bending machine. Your hands are a pretty good machine.
Yeah. Yeah. But we small labs owe a lot to the larger labs out there, like you and AOL, Cottonwood, to do the testing for us. So the first 3D printer, y'all did the testing for us.
And it's morphed down the price. My first, we said earlier, my first printer was $40,000, and it can't even do a candle to what you can buy for 4 or 5.
Right. Yeah.
It's not even close.
Right. So we small labs. That's the great thing about the organization is small labs, big labs. We can all talk and interact, and y'all did all the R&D for us.
Well. To go back into the early 80s, I talked about a little bit at the ORG conference. I went to my first AAO shortly after I started, probably 83 is my first AAO conference. And it was, the lab industry was a closed to each other. If you showed up, you were the enemy. I had one person say, "We can be friends as long as you never come to my laboratory."
Oh my God.
And I went, come on, and it's an open invitation. Anybody who wants to come to the laboratory, they're more than welcome. I have nothing to hide. You might see a lathe, a handpiece, a printer, and a few other things, but it's there. But I have no problem sharing that. But so I remember, and I think I said I went to specialty appliances, and I just gathered up all of the literature I could get. so I could study the pictures and read what the appliances were for. It wasn't an open book, and oftentimes they would look and see that I was, because I was working for an orthodontist, I got to have all of this stuff, but I still felt like I was a thief going around stealing all this literature so I could learn. And with the ORG, it's totally open and it's totally available to anybody. And now to the point where specialty is helping us, and several other laboratories. I don't want to make it just specialty. Kendall from Accutech, and Don Inman and Brandon are helping us to put together the fabrication standards, which are being put up onto the ORG website. And they're now, whereas before I had to go and feel like I was stealing them to learn something.
Yeah, let me. I'll show these while you're talking about it, and we can segue into that.
So
this was one of your big pushes.
Go to expansion, because the expansion is a good one, because we have more in that one, and so some of them are not fully branded. But if we scroll down, let's go to the E-arch. Let's see if
the lower
right there. Let's see if that one is branded correctly. So that's the new branding of our fabrication.
Nice.
Stand. And so for expansion of the and to tip for expansion and buckle tip. So, and then there's the wires that are used and how they're to be bent, and the materials, and what is supposed to be done to make the appliance. So this then gives us the ability to have, and if you do a couple others just to give them a taste, do some bonded ones. That it then gives even some of them even have some variations to it. This is the basis by which all appliances in our industry is our beginning point. It doesn't say that every doctor has to have them exactly this way, but if we all start from the same point, we will then be able to create preferences from this part. And so on our website, we're saying we fabricate our appliances according to the fabrication standards of our industry as established by the ORG. That's our it's coming out on our next website, that this is going to be our basis. And the other day, we have so many variables on how things are requested.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I had an invisible retainer that was just asked, I want an interface retainer.
What?
And I'm going, I've been doing this 40-something years. I've never heard of an interface retainer. And it was an invisible retainer.
Oh, my gosh.
Like, an interface? I've heard of interface never in our industry. And that's a prescription that just showed up.
So now you got to click on this and...
so that's not rebranded with the ORG yet. So.
Right, yeah. So that's just the old way. So we're constantly updating this, and getting, specialty, and where you had to steal, what you felt like you were stealing. It's freely given out now in our industry, which is a blessing.
And I don't think specialty would have ever looked at me like that. But maybe it was a different era of how the labs interacted with each other. So,
and when I was in lab school, I heard, the professors that were teaching us told us stories of, the older guy that had all the skills and stuff. He'd keep a towel over his shoulder and he's doing a crown and he's staining it the way he does it. And then if a young person walked by, they throw the towel over the work, so they couldn't see their techniques. They wouldn't share them, and those days are long gone. And I think digital had a lot to do with that, because it's like, oh my God, I'm a one-person lab and this doctor just bought a scanner. What do I do? I know. I can call Lance, or I can call Josh. I know he's 3D printing. It was great to have a community to go to talk about this.
100%. So, and it really in the last 10 years has really morphed. Quite rapidly into. We're still competitors, but we're peers as well. So,
yeah.
And when we get together at the ORG conference, we're peers first and competitors second.
Yeah.
That's the wish, but
well, when you find out that another lab owner has the same exact problem you do, or had it and has a solution, is willing to share the solution.
and and truly, that is, if I could leave the industry to where my goal is to leave the industry better than I found it, and that's where I feel it a privilege and an honor to be a part of the development, the continued development of this association. I mean, we went through that in the last meeting of how it started with Cade wanting to have a CE course that wasn't dentures.
You're right. Yeah,
And then
it was very selfish. It was selfish reasons.
but at the same time, look at how many people have benefited through this morphing process of making that happen.
Yeah, and it took, and I want to get Chris Gajewski on here.
Sure.
He came in 2017 or so. I got pictures of those. Did I show those yet?
No,
I don't think I did.
That was the very first one.
Yeah. Let's see if I can present that.
I think we can't be remiss to, it was you bringing in Priscilla, and the two of you morphed.
Yeah.
And then Chris came in, and then we took three different organizations and formed them into one.
And that's what I wanted to get at was I missed the. Let's see. I do a little search here on my pictures. Anyway, and so we were like, let's actually start this. Let's do this. And Chris stepped up and said, all right, I'll do this. I'll take the football and I'll run. And then when his term was up, you were like, okay, I got an idea that I want to really start pulling in three organizations. And if you're at the conference, you talk about Don Inman talking about the WKE, and you talked about the Leo Lab, and we had the DLAT in Texas, and we just kind of put a big umbrella, and was able to move forward with that.
And that's part of the rebranding that took place during COVID. We had a lot of extra time.
Yes, we did, because we did not have a conference.
And that's where we said, okay, what rebranding, and we brought all three of them together, and I think it showed in the last several years where we had such a huge variety of. 2018, you say?
Yeah, 2018, I believe. Yeah, and so there are many in here you may recognize, many faces that were involved in this, and there. Sam and Merritt and Dejal and Jay and Juan and Grace and Lance there in the back. There's Tina.
Yeah.
But they were.
And if we go on the other side, then we just missed the other side. We had that was where Priscilla was at. She was very much
right. Yeah, and we had groups, and we broke down in groups, and we're like, there's Tiffany right there and Priscilla.
Tiffany was right from the very beginning too.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
she was even younger then.
Yes. And then I noticed this. What do you want out of the association? And so that I thought that was a great. There's Chris, and then there's Trisha facilitating. The start of this, and so I know we jumped ahead a little bit, but
it's worthy of spending a little time here,
yeah.
Of where we've been and where we're going, and where we are today. What's fascinating to me is if we ran a really true association, every new president brings a different personality. Mm-hmm. It isn't that the past president or the current president has all the answers. They're just bringing their expertise or their focus a little different, and very much each president brought with them what was necessary at that time. And guess what? The association is going to look different with Tiffany running it than when I was running it, and vice versa, or the next board that comes in. And that's fabulous, and it looked different than when I ran it from when Chris ran it, and looks. And then when you bring all three of them, the three organizations together, not any one of them meaning the WKE and the DLAT and the Leo Lab, they've all changed their focus and kind of morphed. And it'll be interesting to see who the next president is, because we have Tiffany one more year. She's agreed to that, and then there'll be a new president with a different focus. And let's go. We heard what everyone had to say last year, where we're going to have more technical training in the ORG meeting this year, and more the business side might be a day earlier, or it's being discussed. We'll have some business portion and more technical, so that we can invite more of our technicians that work with us to the conference. So
yeah, and I always plug this because I want everybody listening. The next conference is in 2024, April 5th and 6th at the Westin Dallas Fort Worth. So go ahead and block that out in your schedule. Go ahead and send out letters to your doctors telling, so they can throw them away, that you're going to be gone. Sorry, inside joke.
You'll have to remind them on the 4th that you won't be there.
Yeah. It's like, remember all the flyers I sent out, but which is great with technology. Like, we're going back in EasyRx. I just did a recording with Charles Burnson of JC Ortho Lab, and he said he can't run his lab now 1,500 miles away from his lab without technology. He wouldn't have been able to do this. And so with EasyRx, you can block out those dates, and it physically stops doctors from scheduling a case when you got your vacation or your conference blocked off.
Once again, the technology.
Yeah. And so I do want to backtrack a bit, and I'm going to show this. So this was 2014.
13.
And
2014. You're right.
2014.
February 13th, 2014.
And so, I put a little teaser in there. I said, will your lab, if you do go on vacation, you block out those dates, will your lab burn down while you're gone? And Lance has an answer to this, which is, yes, it will.
So I'm going to share I'm going to take over. I'm going to share my screen. Well,
yeah.
So this is
Lance has a lot of great pictures of this, and so we're talking about the ORG and how that all got started. But he had a little scary moment in his lab's life in 20. Let's see. Let me add this. Okay.
It's now been the lab has been rebuilt now 8 years. So this was 9 years ago.
That's crazy to think about.
I was literally on a Caribbean cruise, and I was having a great time. Lab owners, we don't always get away very often. And I pull into the port in Miami or wherever I was. And all of a sudden my phone just blew up. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear. And I literally had hundreds of texts, and I don't get hundreds of texts. And they said that the lab burned down. It made the news. So I don't have the newspaper article. It said there was $1.5 million damage. There was a 2-alarm fire. There was like 6 trucks. And so I called my brother, and he said, yeah, the lab burnt down. And so I had no concept of how much damage was done. And so what's fascinating to me is that within one day, the lab was rerunning, because
that's crazy to think about.
If you go from, this.
Yeah.
I'm laughing because I can't even fathom.
And those lights you see, there's tarps on top of that. So that's even more open.
That's all exposed. Yeah. Melted plastic. So what started it was a bathroom fan seized, and usually when they seize, they just shut off. This one decided to smoke until it caught on fire, and then it burned over to a gas line, and it actually the gas line, it fatigued the fitting, and then it became a blowtorch, and it shot through both sides the building. And
So you had neighbors on either side of you.
both of those went to the ground. There was I've said this, there was a neighbor who had a brand new F-350, Ford F-350 pickup. And it went down to the tires on his.
No.
There was absolutely nothing left of his, that's our lunchroom.
Yeah, see the fridge. Yeah.
That was the lunchroom. And so, but at the same time, the laboratory was somewhat preserved. So this is in the middle of the rebuild. The lab was preserved to the point where we only lost one prescription, and it was just singed. So there was a picture that Josh,
where's that?
The one with my lab pan that survived.
Yeah, well, and so you could, while you're trying to find that, there's a slight, not a slight, obvious miracle going on where this thing happened in your lab. It burnt both of your neighbors down, but there's a hedge of protection over your lab where you got one singed, appliance or prescription.
And I'm a believer in a higher authority. Those who know me know that I really believe that there's a purpose by which we're here on the earth, and by no stretch of the word do I would be remiss to think that I wasn't one of those that was protected, because in the end, after we did all of this work.
So the case pan, I don't know if y'all saw that in that picture, but there's a purple case pan, just pristine as can be down at the bottom of the.
You could have washed it up and used it.
Yeah, you could have just washed it and put another case pan, another model in there.
And so, for like 5 years, we had stagnated. The lab was flat, and we moved out, and we had our best year ever in a temporary facility. And so at this point,
tell us. Okay, so it happened on what day?
It was on Friday. Thursday. It was when it
Thursday.
Happened. Friday, all of our technicians showed up to work after they were sent home on Thursday. We gathered up all the equipment with like Serve Pro or whatever, one of these people who come in and help with fires. We moved everything. There was a building down that had like 5,000 or 6,000 square feet. And by Saturday, they were producing lab work. They bought 50 card tables, a bunch of chairs, and went to Home Depot and bought air compressors. And by Monday morning, the drivers left with all of the work, and we didn't even have any late cases.
No late case. That would have been the ultimate excuse to a doctor. And I think I come up with some really good excuses, but your lab burning to the ground is the ultimate excuse.
There was one sad part about it is we had a competitor that actually said, "Oh, well, they've shut down permanently," and they went to all our doctors and told us that we had closed.
Oh my gosh!
And then they pulled out the cases and said, "You mean the ones that we just got delivered today?"
Oh man, they must have just. They're like, they got the cases out? Do they have a second location?
So that was the only sad part. They did go out of business. I still have no ill will towards them, but this was the process of rebuilding. And so, when I got off the phone with my brother on that Saturday morning when we pulled into port, I said, "What do you want me to do?" And he said, "Well, just keep your regular flight. We'll continue to do things." And Sunday afternoon, I got into work, and he took me through the whole lab and the new space. And I said, "Well, now what do you want me to do?" He says, "Well, show up to work tomorrow. Let's go to work."
That's awesome.
Didn't even work Sunday.
Yeah.
We didn't work Sunday at all because everything was caught up.
That's amazing.
And so I give credit to the crew, the whole lab, for working really hard and making that happen. So it's not a one person deserves all the credit for this, but it was a whole lab. The whole lab stepped up and did everything.
And you mentioned, zero credit for you. You were just showed up on Monday and start working which was what the new location was, half a mile down the road. You said
about a half mile to a mile. But here's the fun part that I enjoy. Actually, I was the contractor. That's me up there.
oh my,
I'm standing on that, and so I was the foreman of building it. And so these are some pictures of the lab afterwards. So
oh
this was the roof. They're kind
those,
of out of order.
yeah.
That's the burnt one coming down, and those are the new ones coming up. And somewhere I'm this little guy running around trying to put all this together.
So
And
your lab's just running all day at the temporary location. You there being the contractor pretty
I
much
was,
because you said you come from a family of contractors.
yeah. And so these are just the designs, and so they're kind of out of the order. But this is more we're moving in here at this point, starting to do a little bit of work.
Oh, look at that.
Those are my benches that I built, and they're a little bit out of order, but that's me
Yeah,
hanging up out there.
I'll say that the out of order was my fault, but so this was like one big open room.
It was huge. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And this is moving in. You can still see boxes everywhere, and I had the cabinets built. We built all the designs.
So you got to actually. So you said you're stagnant, and you came out of the place burns down, and you were accused.
So yeah, there's
Yeah.
the best part. So as I got back from this, I'm going to turn off. Got
Here, I'll do that. Yeah.
So I got back, and then right after that, the fire marshal brought all of us in the room together, and I'm still totally stressed. It's like Tuesday after I got back, and the fire marshal has some inspectors there, and he looks over, he points at me, he goes, "Well, if you tell me where you started this, it'll make my job a whole lot easier." And I kind of chuckled, and then I realized he's not laughing. He accused me of starting the fire, and I eventually said, I didn't start the fire.
I have the ultimate alibi. I was on a boat.
And part of that was that he thought that I had started I'd been gone for 6 months earlier. I'd adjusted our insurance rate up, or the amount of the value.
The coverage.
The coverage.
Yeah.
So, and that was his red flag. So. Anyway.
So that was wow, that's such an amazing story. But I guess he found the seized motor in the bathroom.
And eventually they tried to sue the fan company.
Oh.
And they lost. So that's why everybody make sure you have insurance. It's nobody wants to have fire insurance, but I didn't want to have it. But
Okay,
I'll tell you what, I was pretty grateful I did.
I got to make a call after this podcast.
I don't know when it happened that the lab that has become it's really over 40 something years that I've been 43 years now. It's part of my identity, and I know Phil Pellegra alluded to it in his conference his talk. The lab becomes part of our identity, and it's been a great ride. And I want to make sure that everybody who has a 1, 2, 5 person laboratory, you're in a great spot. You don't have to be a mega laboratory to make a comfortable living. I do want to stress that we need to be a for-profit organization. I know some people want to drive the prices down. I want to drive them up. I want you to be more expensive. Matter of fact, I think, Cade, you and I were talking, and I made you raise your prices.
Oh yeah, which has happened now. Yeah, yeah.
I want everybody to be able to. The reality is we're pharmacists, and
right.
And we should make a pharmacist or greater than a pharmacist, because a pharmacist just counts pills. We do a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
We're actually manufacturers as well. And for some reason, our industry's flying under the radar. and has been for 100 years. But we're not under the radar as much as we used to be. So let's make sure that we're treated as equals and as partners, as collaborators. That's our new focus on our website. We want to make sure that we're collaborating with offices, and that our doctors collaborate with us and give us the credibility for what we do and what we are. So
we've definitely, and I almost want to say, with the digital, we've become an asset, a resource to doctors.
100%, 100%.
I've gotten calls. I'm just a little one man mom and pop lab, and I get calls. Kate, I'm thinking about getting a scanner. What do I get? I'm like, I can tell you which ones work better with my software, and that's what I can tell you. And so yeah, we've become more of a resource, and I think that's why the ORG sign, together we know more, or did I say that wrong? Together we know more.
We're better together.
We're better together. Yeah, that's it.
And that seems to be the theme of a lot of businesses, industries, but it's very, very real for what we do. So
yeah, this is, and that was a deciding factor for starting the ORG was this is open for in-house labs, doctors, whoever's in this orthodontic resource. We just want to be a resource to everyone out there that needs it, because you got a great shot of what the industry used to be competitively, and it's not like that anymore. So that's well said on your part.
Well, and it's been a pleasure to be a part of it, of that transition, because once it started, it just snowballed.
Yeah,
everybody's hungry for it, and I hope that we can get more laboratories to jump on board and realize that. I don't think any laboratory wakes up in the morning and goes, "Hey, how can I put this person out of business?" We want each other to be out there. There's more than enough work out there to keep us busy, and there's more than enough doctors that would love to have a laboratory in their backyard. So open up. Backyard. I mean, it's
I feel like we're, especially ortho labs, we're a rare breed. If you look at CDTs, the last numbers I got of all the CDTs, of all the ortho or dental disciplines, crown and bridge, dentures, RPDs, the implants, that kind of stuff. Ortho was only 3% of that, of the CDTs. So I almost correlate that with the labs. I bet you of all dental labs, ortho would only be like 5%. There's not many of us out there, so there's plenty of work to go around. We need to help each other out.
There is, and can you go start one for $10,000 these days? I don't think so.
Yeah, unfortunately, no. Yeah, unfortunately, no.
But at the same time, it's still there. There's still opportunity.
And so, I kind of wanted to get into the Olympic ortho lab, and how did this come about?
So Don and Barb Oshner owned Olympic Ortho. It's almost 40 years old by itself.
Wow.
And Donna was reaching 70, and Barb was reaching, she's in her 60s, 62, I think is where she's 64 now. And COVID hit, and they financially, it was the right time. And Barb called up and said, well, or Don called me and said, well, I'm going to retire. And we're either going to shut it down, or you're going to come up. And they kind of said, we'd like you to take it over.
Well, and that's another thing is during COVID, the number of labs shrunk.
It did.
People were just like, I'm done. I don't want to deal with this. I'm going to retire early. I think we lost 500 labs nationwide during COVID during those 2 years. So that was one of them, was Olympic. And
yeah, well, Olympic just morphed. And it's still very much intact. It still has, and give Don and Barb a lot of credit. They didn't want to shut it down. They wanted to keep their employees working. And so they went out of their way to try and find a way for it to stay open and to keep their employees there. And that I just happened to be part of that equation. Because at the same time, at that time, there wasn't a lot of people buying orthodontic laboratories anywhere. So
they knew to come to you because you you have open arms to everybody in the industry.
I've known Don and Barb now for over 30 years. We really met right in the early part of when we started. And we've had a close relationship. Matter of fact, we've never marketed in each other's areas, and there's this one city between us that nobody ever went there.
It's a dead zone. You're like, can we get any help?
They thought it was my territory, and I thought it was in theirs. They're like, well, I never went there because I thought that was yours, and they said, and vice versa. And so
wow.
And so that was the mutual respect that we had for each other for years, and we still have it today. We still keep in touch. Don was just in the lab just a couple days ago. So,
that's great. Yeah. So he gets to still be a part of the industry. You didn't just kick them out and said shut the door behind them.
No, they're and Barb is now doing yard gardening, which was her passion. Which sometimes when you're running a laboratory and you want to go home and weed the garden, it might be 10 o'clock at night sometimes.
Yeah.
And they were working really, really hard for a long time, and eventually it was like, okay, we can make that transition out. So
that's great. Well, we're bumping in. That's a weird term. We're closing in on an hour. How about we do one little sales pitch for the ORG membership, just to kind of tie this all together? And you're the best man to do that.
Well, guys, really, we need each other. And that really comes down to it. We need your input as much as anything. So let's reach out and say, look, if you have an idea of what you want the ORG to look like, give your input. I can't say that everybody will get what they want because that doesn't work that way. There's things but your voice still needs to be heard. And with time and you becoming the president or getting in line to become the president, things will move forward to benefit everybody. So, if you want to, we just, the saying "we're better together" is not just just words. We've seen it in the past few years, and I think we'll see it more. And I honestly think our vendors really love, because I was watching some of the vendors pop up here.
Yeah,
it's a great place for us. They've never had a place just for ortho labs to show up and be a part of. So, your input.
And soon,
that's what we need everybody. And if you're not getting something out of it, reach out to the president and other members and say, well, what can we do? And it's a cheap membership. You can't even join washing your car that they do once a month will cost you more than what you'll get out of it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We've even tiered it to make it fair for every lab. So, a single owner operator, 1 to 2 employees is $100 a year. It goes up from there. Where if you're a large lab with 15 plus employees, it's $250 a year. Drop in the bucket for you large labs.
Well, but the value, maybe you'll raise the big labs, but I don't want to.
Yeah, maybe we.
But at the same time, it's some of the bigger labs have been putting a lot of finance into developing of this organization.
Yeah.
Over and above some of the expenses, they put it in silently behind the scenes. They've done work without being paid for it. And especially with some of the fabrication standards, this is not a paid position, but some people say it should. And I would say if we were going to pay somebody, I think we pay Cade first. That'd be
a complete failure on y'all's
part. Because I think that you underestimate the value you are to this association, Cade, and so I want to give you the kudos for that, and your wife for the sacrificing of the time. that you take to do all the things you do, both for the ORG and the DLAT.
Well, and like I said, it's selfish reasons because I
you
want
can
to learn.
say,
Yeah.
you can say that to deflect, but we all know differently. So, guys, it's been a great ride, and it's not over. I still will be in the industry for the foreseeable future. I mean, when I say I've been in that long, you kind of know how long I've been in. You kind of get my age, but I'm not dead yet.
Yeah, I'm not dead yet. That was Jay Tyler when he came to speak at our conference. It was his first. I'm not dead yet. I'm still here.
I didn't know that. That's funny.
Yeah.
So,
but we do have a couple questions. Not questions, but just comments about the fire. Sometimes I forget the stainless steel kettles until it sets on fire on the stove.
That we actually had to put timers on ours. So you go through, you plug it in, and you have a timer.
Yeah, it's some of the stuff in the lab gets kind of scary. So, and if you ever run into any problems being a part of the organization, you can reach out to someone, which is great. So I'm going to end it there. Do you have any last words, Lance or Josh?
I'm good.
No.
Yes,
okay.
Thanks. Once again, thanks, Cade, for all you do. It's been I wish I'd have met you 30 years ago, but I don't know that you were that old yet.
Hey, I was enjoying your Excel orthodontics website long before I knew you, because I was like, there's the perfect picture of the appliance that this doctor wants to make. I was like, is this what you want? This is from another labs, but is this what you want? And I think I've told you that before. Your website was very valuable to me. Now you've moved that over to the organization and come up with appliance standards. So very much appreciative of your efforts.
It's all part of everybody's helped feed my vision. So it's not all mine.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, okay. Well, we'll leave off there on that good note. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And I'll see everybody next week. I might be on vacation, maybe. So I did pre-record one that we may play on next Friday at noon. So I'll see y'all next time. Everyone, Lance and Josh, stay on board. And I'll let y'all know when we're done. Until then, everybody else,